Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In this video I'm going to show you how to trill on the piano just like this. Now, trilling on the piano can be quite difficult, and when you are early in your piano career, you can get some tension in your hand when trying to trill, so you've got to be very careful about how you approach it. But it can also be the sign of a competent pianist, and it's just a cool thing to do. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to do that, or how to approach learning that, by showing you some exercises that will help you develop the technique to be able to trill. Now, in order to be able to trill, there are two main things that you need. The first one is a completely relaxed hand. You cannot trill if there is tension in your hand because you're stopping the movements by your muscles tensing. You also need to develop some kind of finger strength, especially in the weaker fingers of your hand. And this comes by playing lots and by doing lots of exercises like the ones I'm going to show you in this video. So the first thing I'm going to show you in order to be able to trill is an exercise that uses all of your fingers, because you want to try and evenly strengthen them so that they're all doing the same kind of movement. So if we start on a C with your thumb, and then go to a little finger on a G, and then to an F, and then to a G. We'll just repeat that. So C, G, F, G. Then we're going to go C, F, E, F, and then C, E, D, E, and then C. So I'll repeat that. C, G, F, G, C, F, E, F, C, E, D, E, C. So this is the first exercise, and I would do this lots of times just to get your hand used to feeling going backwards and forwards from one note to another. Because ultimately, this is how a trill works. You're going from one note to a different note and then back to the same note lots of times. And this is just once at the moment, but this will help develop the technique to get those notes very, very even in your hand. It's also very important to make sure that there is no tension in your hand at this stage, because if there is tension in your hand now, then it'll get worse and worse as we go through the stages of this technique. So once you've practiced this exercise a few times, then you can start trying to speed it up, making sure that you're relaxed all the time. You also want to make sure that all of the notes are as even as possible. And now once we have this, we can start doubling up the notes. So this time we're going to go backwards and forwards twice between the notes, like so. C, G, F, G, F, G, C, F, E, F, E, F, C, E, D, E, D, E, C. Once you've done that a few times, you'll start to notice that it's quite hard to keep your hand even, and it might feel a little bit funny in your hand trying to get it to do those repeated movements. But this is all part of the process. You'll get used to this the more and more times you do this, and you should add it to your daily practice if this is one of your goals to be able to trill. So once you've got to this stage, the next thing that I would recommend doing is moving all of the notes up by one key to the nearest black key. So this puts it in the key of C sharp rather than the key of C. So in the key of C, you've got these 5 white notes. But in the key of C sharp, if you move all of these keys up one, so this one would go to here, this one would go to here, this one would go to here, and this one would go to here, and this one would go to here. So you end up with these 5 black notes. This means that you're going to be practicing using the black notes and the white notes when you're doing this technique. So from here, we're just going to repeat the same process, doing that exercise again, but using these notes. And as you go through this, make sure if you start to feel tension in your hands that you are reducing the speed again, so that you're not going at a speed where you're going to get tension in your hand. So the next step to this would be to go back to C, so we're working with C again and those 5 white notes, but try to not pick a length of how long the trill is actually going to be, and just work between the notes as long as it feels comfortable. Something like this. And then you can try it on C sharp. So at this point, you should start to hear that you are getting closer and closer to what a trill actually sounds like in practice. So the next step would be to pick 2 notes on the piano, probably C and D in this case, but it doesn't really matter. And use your 2 strongest fingers, so your thumb and your index finger, your second finger, and just try and go as fast as you can with your trill, but in short bursts, just so you're releasing that tension at the end of each short burst, something like this. And each time you play this, what you're aiming for is complete evenness between the notes. And you're not always going to get that because that's the nature of playing trills. But using your 2 strongest fingers, you should be able to start to hear that you are getting something like a trill. And eventually you can just elongate this so that you get a full trill. And you should be able to go as long as you want, there should be no tension. If you are feeling like you have to stop, or that if you were still playing this in 5 minutes time, you would start to ache, then that means there is tension in your hand, and there shouldn't be. So now you've got the essence of how to work up a trill in the strongest fingers of your hand. Now we can start to do it with weaker fingers. So maybe the index finger and the third finger. And then you can work up to your third and fourth finger, and then up to your fourth and fifth. Now, the fourth and the fifth finger are hard to get to move at any stage in your piano career, so don't worry if this feels really awkward. It's always good to build up that strength in those fingers anyway, in case you need them. But for the most part, when you do trills, especially in a pop setting, you're probably going to use the first 3 fingers anyway. But it's just good practice to make sure you've got the fourth and fifth fingers in there as well. At this stage, I would also bring back in the C-sharp set of notes so that you've got those 5 notes under your hand. And go through exactly the same process. And you can also do the same thing in your left hand. There's no reason why you can't do the opposite thing in your hand. I hope this has been useful. And before you go on to this video, if it has been useful, then be sure to leave me with a like and subscribe. And I will see you next time.